Of September 2016, we're going to be talking about Black Lives Matter. Got it? Countdown? 5, 4, ready?
I just counted.
So I'm on?
Yes.
All right. Welcome to another edition of Peaceworker Radio, coming to you from WCCR, Voice and Vision of Cambridge, 438 Mass Avenue. Thanks so much for joining us here. There are a lot of things to be talking about here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The main reason for this is that Black Lives Matter has now come to Cambridge. Last evening, the 31st of August, 2016, in the hour between 8:30 a.m. and 9 a.m.
Another major problem for the Clinton team, hacking.
A group of organized Black Lives activists came to the City Hall and chained themselves to the front doors of City Hall in protest of the rent politics of Cambridge, Massachusetts, which I will be speaking about in just a few moments, and in general because of the question of Black Lives Matter, which affects people in Cambridge, Massachusetts as well. The question of these young individuals is how much of the Black Lives Matter movement statements, how much of their ideology has been understood and absorbed and integrated by the persons here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, ostensibly one of the most intellectual communities in New England. The reality is a little different. As someone who has spent a number of years here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I can attest to the fact that the politicians and the individuals walking through Cambridge, Massachusetts are by definition not more intellectual or more interested in Black Lives Matter. We're looking out the studio window here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, toward the main street, which runs directly off of Mass Avenue. This is a studio camera. And what you see is just a regular community. It's not more intellectual than any other. The question is, however, that because Cambridge has the ideology of being very intellectual, the question is, how tolerant, how intellectual, how cognitive are the police, is the city manager, are the city councilors here in Cambridge? And because the individuals who approached the front of City Hall between 8 and 9 on yesterday morning and had the strength of character to not create any damage, but to chain themselves to the front doors of City Hall to reinforce their position. They took a position on Black Lives Matter by chaining themselves to the front door. They also had 30 or 40 or more supporters that were there that held up signs and were willing to interact with the public and the police and members of City Hall who obviously took time to speak with them. However, the realities of the construction of City Hall is that there are doors to the back of City Hall, and as a matter of fact, a parking lot there. So although the front doors were blocked by individuals of some moral character and strength of idea, had chained themselves to the front door, the other doors, the access to the building was completely open. Business went on as usual. So the question we are asking here, I am asking, and perhaps in the name of hundreds of other citizens, the arrest of these individuals, citizens of the city of Cambridge, are charges going to be pressed against these persons of character, these persons of integrity, because they brought forward an idea that is of major importance to citizens throughout the United States, the idea that Black lives matter. Black lives matter because Black lives, the lives of Blacks throughout the United States, are being taken by police officers day for day. The estimates that I have been given from sources are that 1,000 Blacks are killed each year by police under circumstances which are other than the immediate question of the police having to kill Blacks because the police lives were in danger. The question is, according to the Supreme Court, that a police officer has the option of killing anyone who seems to threaten their lives, whether objectively or subjectively. The police have ostensibly the right, according to the Supreme Court decision, to take the lives of any individual who appears to threaten the life of a policeman, appears to threaten his life, like reaching in his pocket or reaching to the glove compartment of his car when he stopped, or by running away and then stopping and turning. Any action that a police officer in the United States considers to be a threat to his person, not life and death to that police officer, not an objective evaluation of the true danger, but the subjective evaluation that a police officer has saying, I thought that my life was in danger, is sufficient enough for the police officer to have cause, justified cause, to kill that individual, to use deadly force as the Supreme Court issues. This is a question that the elevated intellectual community of Cambridge, Massachusetts should take very seriously, because it's the police officers of Cambridge, Massachusetts as well that have this right. The question, of course, is, do police officers in Cambridge, Massachusetts actually kill Cambridge residents because they feel, the police officers feel, that their lives are in danger, according to the Supreme Court ruling? That may be what the activists of Black Lives Matter were intending to bring forward to the residents of Cambridge when they decided in peaceful fashion to chain themselves to the front doors of City Hall. The question that we have tonight is, what is the precise relationship between deadly force and civil rights, between the right to protest and the Supreme Court lended right to police officers to use deadly force when they feel they are threatened? And what would the theoretical and practical aspects of this question be? We're interested in looking at that, and we're interested in looking at that by examining some information provided to the newspapers about Black Lives Matter, and if you'll bear with me and let me pull this up onto the screen, we'll be able to converse more clearly about this. So we have Black Lives Matter Network here, and I believe there's a text here which would make a difference. Let's see if we can get this text here. About Black Lives Matter. Let's get a look at what this text then says. About Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is a unique contribution that goes beyond extrajudicial killings of black people by police and vigilantes. It goes beyond the narrow nationalism that can be prevalent within some black communities, which merely call on black people to love black, live black, and buy black, keeping the straight, cis black men in the front of the movement, while our sisters, queer and trans and disabled folk, take up roles in the background or not at all. So the text. Black Lives Matter affirms the lives of black, queer, and trans folks, disabled folks, black undocumented folks, folks with records, women, and all black lives along the gender spectrum. It centers those that have been marginalized within the black liberation movements. It is a tactic to rebuild black liberation movement. Black Lives Matter is a tactic. That is a statement of import. Black Lives Matter Network advocates for dignity and justice. Black Lives Matter Network advocates for dignity, justice, and respect. The Black Lives Network advocates for dignity, justice, and respect. In the last few days, this country witnessed the record murders of Alton Sterling and Philando Castle at the hands of police, the latest victims in this country's failed policing system. As we have done for decades, we marched and protested to the highlight and urgent need to transform policing in America, to call for justice, transparency, accountability, and to demand that Black Lives Matter. In Dallas, many gathered to do the same, joining in a day of action with friends, family, and co-workers. Their efforts were cut short when a lone gunman targeted and attacked 11 police officers, killing 5. This is a tragedy, both for those who have been impacted by yesterday's attack and for our democracy. There are some who would use these events to stifle a movement for change and quicken the demise of a vibrant discourse on human rights of black Americans. We should reject all of this. The statement. Black activists have raised the call for an end to violence, not an escalation of it. Yesterday's attack was a result of the actions of a lone gunman. To assign the actions of one person to an entire movement is dangerous and irresponsible. We continue our efforts to bring about a better world for all of us. So the Black Lives Matter, in reference to the events in Dallas, Texas recently. Black Lives Matter, about the founders, who we are. Understand who we are, our definition. The state of violence and the current state of the Black Union. Black Lives Matter is a chapter-based organization working for the validity of black lives. We are working to rebuild the Black liberation movement. Black Lives Matter was created in 2012 by Trayvon Martin's murderer, George Zimmerman. Was created after Trayvon Martin's murder. George Zimmerman was acquitted of his crime. and death of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin, posthumously placed on trial for his own murder, rooted in the experiences of black people in this country who actively resist our dehumanization. Black Lives Matter is a call to action and a response to the virulent anti-black racism that permeates our society. Black Lives Matter is a unique contribution that goes beyond extrajudicial killings by black people, by police, and by vigilantes. That's the statement that all of us can read online in reference to Black Lives Matter, but it doesn't go far enough, and it's not specific enough in reference to the courageous act of blacks yesterday here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The reality of young blacks peacefully coming forward to the city hall of the city they live in and chaining themselves to the front doors, perhaps in full knowledge that it didn't disrupt business, only that any individual wishing to get into the front door would walk the 50 steps or so to get into the other side of the building where the doors were open and where business can be conducted as usual. A slight effort necessary only to be able for any citizen to take part in the business they wish to conduct in City Hall. And of course, as soon as it was known that someone had chained themselves to the front doors, certainly the alarm went out, and anti-activists, agents provocateurs is the name of these anti-activists who risk absolutely nothing, but who then come to the City Hall, the place where the protest is taking place, and protest that their rights to have access to a building are being impugned, are being made difficult, that they feel inconvenienced, that their tax money is not being paid to allow them to enter the building. These agents provocateurs are everywhere in the city of Cambridge. I've lived here for 12 years and experienced them under any number of circumstances, so I'm certain that they could have been at City Hall yesterday. The question we're asking here on a period less than 48 hours after the question of the arrest is the mayor, the city council, the police, the city of Cambridge pressing charges against these black individuals and their sympathizers who are protesting the question of Black Lives Matter, the position that black lives are being taken, that police continue to kill blacks at alarming numbers here this year, as in the past, over the last 20 years. 1,000 blacks a year are killed by police bullets in the United States. The question in each of these cases, of these 1,000 cases, is under what circumstances, what were the actual conditions? Not that the police were exonerated, that's of course unquestioned, but that the reality of the death of these blacks or people of color, Asians, was their lives were taken from them under conditions which the Supreme Court granted and which allowed the police to go forward in this matter. We're living in the United States, by far the most violent nation on the planet, bar any nation. And a nation which considers itself to be an example of liberalism, of peace, of harmony, of progress, of culture, of fortitude, of heroism. However, although Americans consider themselves, or we consider ourselves, I'll call myself to this point, but mention as well that Colin Kaepernick is receiving a lot of bad press, the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, for not standing up, for not having his hand on his heart, and for not taking off his hat recently as the Star Spangled Banner played. The reality that an individual is willing to, an individual of that stature, NFL quarterback, to put this question forward about the racist nature of the country he happens to be a citizen of, the racist nature of this, the facts of the killing of blacks, the facts of the racist wars that this nation has continued to conduct over the 250 years that the name America has been brought forward to this nation. The crisis that we have today, and the reason for this discussion by this old white guy in front of the local Cambridge television station, is precisely that. We are interested here at this position of finding out why or if the charges brought forth against these individuals can be dropped by the city of Cambridge. Let's have an open discussion about this. Apparently no one was injured. Apparently business was carried on easily. The doors were open and the individuals who had protested were taken into custody, and the protest was over. I see, as an old white guy, no need for charges to be pressed for the lives of these individuals to be ruined by pressing charges of obstruction of justice or prohibiting the use of a public building or any other number of charges which could be brought against them. The question would be, let's have a discussion about peaceful protest here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. As an enlightened city, as the city in which the two most prominent universities perhaps on the planet happen to be housed, let's have an open discussion about the realities of being a citizen, being youth, being black youth, belonging to a Black Lives Matter movement, and being an activist here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The idea of having taking a moral stand, being a moral individual, feeling empathy for the families of those whose children, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, grandparents perhaps, have been snuffed out and taken from them by police exercising the right granted the police by the Supreme Court decades ago, seems to be something which could be easily discussed in a forum, of course, with police, with politicians, with anthropologists, social anthropologists, with blacks, of course, and perhaps with members of the public whose loved ones have been killed at the hands of police officers. I can remember the beginning of the administration of Barack Obama at an incident which took place here right down the street on just off of Mass Avenue when a black professor, a professor of black history, was arrested in his effort to enter his own house by Cambridge police officers. That situation could have ended much more dramatically. We're thankful that it didn't, but that doesn't alleviate the circumstances and the strenuous effort taken by Cambridge police and Cambridge politicians on national TV over weeks to try to eliminate the idea that racism could have played a role in the fact of a black individual at 12 o'clock being arrested in his effort to enter his own home. This is Peaceworker Radio coming to you from Cambridge Community Television. We're hoping that a discussion of this kind can take place in the near future. We hope that this discussion has been of some assistance in activating a discussion of this time, and we look forward to comments from anyone here in Cambridge or who feels interested in this matter to let the station know or to be in touch with yours truly. From Peaceworker Radio here on the 1st of September 2016 at 7:30 to 8 o'clock, segment of Be Live. Thank you for listening, and in the hope that a discussion takes place quickly and that this matter can be brought forward and examined. Yours truly. Good evening.